Hey guys, Mr. Amari here again with another drawing tutorial. This week we're going to be going back to another superhero. We're going to be doing Robin from Teen Titans Go. Let's get to the program. So the thing with Robin from Teen Titans Go, and really all the characters from Teen Titans Go, if you look at the reference art I have up there, is that they have a very distinct look. It's one of the things that made Teen Titans Go as popular as it was. The fact that they had this very distinct, I would call it a very geometric look, meaning they weren't trying to make it look realistic. They were trying to build the characters out of very distinct geometric shapes. You know, you can see the rectangles, you can see the circles. You can basically see where the artist was using base shapes to create the character. And it gives it a very, very standout look. You know, you take a look at any of the Teen Titans Go characters and you can kind of tell that look right off the bat. Okay, so the first thing I want to do when I'm looking at my reference art here is I want to make sure that I'm getting kind of the layout right. There's a lot of things happening in this picture. We have things that are supposed to be coming toward us, things that are going to be more in the background, and things that are kind of in the middle. So again, since it's a flat object, we're going to have to use a process called foreshortening, meaning drawing things that are supposed to be close to us bigger and things that are supposed to be further away smaller. So first thing I'm going to do though is start getting some of the basic shapes here. So his head is kind of in the top right corner. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of rough out the shape in the top right corner there for him. You know, get my pencil going. Go ahead and kind of rough out the shape here. He's got a very square jaw that comes to a pointy rounded chin. That comes up to a very rounded face here. Move this down a little bit. Here. So we have the square jaw, the pointy rounded chin, the rounded part of the face, and then over here, make sure we get that ear shape in, which again, very kind of angular look to it. The ear is also going to help define the shape of the hairline. It's one of those things that when you're drawing cartoon characters, there are certain things you want to make sure you get right. Shape of the head and face is a big thing, and kind of the shape of the hair. Anything that defines the shape of the character is big. If you ever take a look at something like The Simpsons, that's why The Simpsons characters stand out as much as they do. It's because they have very distinct geometrical shapes that they're using, and that even if you didn't see the details of their face, you can still tell just from looking at them in like a silhouette, like who the characters are. Get the basic shape for the hair here. I can fix that later. I want to make sure I get the spacing of things right. One of the things about Robin with this, he has that hairline that goes back all the way that way and kind of cuts in. So we're going to have the two curls there. And it's going to come around and come down to that. Not quite right. That's why we do this in pencil. Do it in pencil so that you can erase and so that we can get things corrected into looking the way we want it to, instead of being stuck with how we drew it the first time. Okay, it's coming along. We got that shape of the sideburn on the side looking pretty good. It comes around, there's going to be more of a swoop down to a widow's peak. There we go, that's more of the Robin from Teen Titans look. And the face cuts into there. And once I get the eyes set, I can fix that a little more. So the other thing, it's got a very expressive face. So the mouth is kind of a big U shape. You know, if you notice this, really the shape of the mouth is just this kind of U that kind of pops down. Very anime inspired kind of look here. And teeth. The teeth are just a rectangle that goes across. Again, everything's kind of a geometric shape. The tongue is just a half circle. The teeth are just a little rectangle that pops down. Now we have the nose is this tiny little triangle. And again, notice how just by putting that little detail, it kind of sets the face. It kind of looks a lot more like Robin right now from Teen Titans. So I can go ahead and get the eyes going here. Now they do this nice thing where they have the eyes kind of overlap with the mouth. I think I might have put the eye over a little too far. I did. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move that nose a tiny bit just so I can get things kind of where they should be. so. Nose. Okay, and now with Robin's eyes, to try to give the impression he's wearing a mask, they actually have it overlap different parts of his face. They see like the nose kind of overlaps and covers the mask, and then the mask itself covers his mouth a little bit. So we have the point up there, it comes down. Not too dissimilar from the Spider-Man kind of eye lens look for his mask. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. And this is a big thing for Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans Go is very much about the gigantic expressive eyes for their characters. Some people have criticized it for being simplistic. I think it's a nice look, especially for like a cartoon as silly as it is. It very much, let's make sure this lines up right here. Come up a little more, come out a little more. As silly as it is, having these big expressive characters with these expressive eyes is really kind of important and really kind of helps set the tone when you're visually looking at this. That's the thing about things like cartoons is, you know, the writing gets you so far and you can have really good funny writing, but the visuals have to match the tone of it. And Teen Titans is one of those where I feel like the tone of the cartoon and kind of the visual look is just kind of a perfect, you know, like combination. So we're going to go ahead and put some of the details of the mask here. Now the mask does meet in the middle over his nose. They're not just two separate eyes. Put in that. Might have made one of these too big, but whatever. Again, it's an exaggerated look. We're not trying to get it perfect. We're trying to make it look as much like Robin from Teen Titans as we can. Good. He has that big forehead going on. Looks like we got the head pretty much placed kind of where we would like to have it placed. Let's get those eye lenses nicely defined. Notice how around the mask he has, it looks like an outlining the white lenses of his mask. We want to make sure that we have that coming across in our drawing too. Yeah, this is definitely not even here, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to fix this up a little bit. Better. Okay. Looking like Robin from Teen Titans. So, now the other thing we need to do is we need to start shaping out the rest of his form here. Now, like I said, I'm going to go for kind of like the waist up sort of look. So I want to get that hand pointing out, which is going to take up most of my right side here. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to undo that, actually. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of rough out the shape of the body here. I'm going to give the little tilt for his neck is actually really scrawny in these cartoons. So I got to make sure I don't make them as thick as I normally would for a superhero. Normally the superhero, you got these big thick necks that kind of extend down from behind the ears. For Teen Titans Go, to show that they're young and they're teenagers, they go ahead and they give them these very skinny necks. It's one of the things they can do to make a character look younger very easily in a cartoon. You'll notice that he has that kind of like where the cape comes down. It's just basically a diamond. All you're doing is going around the neck with a diamond, and you have that look. And now here's where I'm going to just do kind of like a basic, just a line to get where the arm's going to go. That's looking okay. And now the hand, because it's supposed to be coming out at us, it's supposed to be closer to us, we got to make this thing bigger than his face, or like the same size as his face, to make the hand look like it's big. And so this is where we're going to have probably our biggest challenge here. But the nice thing with this is the hand is very much a very simple series of geometric shapes. So the glove itself starts as just kind of this semicircle. We just have that little swoop there. Then we have a straight line. And notice how as we go out, it gets bigger. Now the glove comes down, then comes up. And then the hand is just this little kind of L shape where the palm is. Same thing up top where we start with his thumb. The thumb's going to curl around, and it's really just a rectangle that turns in on itself. That's all this is. This is a rectangle. And I'm actually running out of space here a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just draw it, challenging the edges of my page, just so I don't have to start redoing the entire thing. So not bad. We have the finger come out. Now the finger, if you're fitting the whole thing on your page, it's again just a big old rectangle that's kind of like rounded off at the end. And then the rest of the fingers are the same thing. These are just, you're basically doing a rectangle here to show almost like a mitten kind of closing. And then to show that he's wearing the glove, we're just going to have these little rounded lines to show that that's where his fingers separate out to. You might want to round out the bottom a little bit just to kind of show that they're fingers, to kind of sell the look that is not just a line going across, but it has actual some dimensionality. I actually added more dimensionality than the cartoon itself does. The cartoon itself just goes with, nah, that thing's going to look like a box. And so making the hand nice and big coming out at you, it gives you that impression that, yeah, he's pointing toward you, not just on another part on the page, but it's coming toward you. Now, the arm itself, we have to get the sleeve going. The sleeve is very simple. We're going to have a circle that goes around the arm. The best way to create a sleeve that kind of looks realistic is just do a little C shape, and instead of completing the circle, wherever the circle would complete, you stop at the arm that's going to cover it, and then you continue on with where that line would be. Look, normally that would just kind of continue there, but I'm going to get rid of that line, and I have myself a sleeve that looks like an arm is coming out. Very, very simple, but an effective way to make something look like it's, you know, sitting on the character. His sleeve actually sits on the top of his arm. It doesn't flare out, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to make that look like it does in the picture. And then if you look at the shape here in the reference art, it looks almost like a cup. Like they're just drawing like a kind of cup shape here where his costume sleeve is. And then you get the sleeve that we're going to be coloring in later in that green shape, right? And the nice thing again about this is it gives us nice separation. It gives us this idea, you know, that's where his shoulder is versus where his body is going to be versus where his hand is. So now for the body itself, again, we have the back part of the body. Similar to how we did Miles Morales, there's like the back muscle that turns in. Here we don't have it as pronounced, partially because, again, he's supposed to be younger and partially because this is a more cartoony style. We're just going to have a line that goes swooping down this way and then curves the other way. So one of the easiest ways is to curve and then curve the other way. Almost a tiny little S shape. It's going to give you kind of that like superhero style back muscle to a waist. Not realistic at all. No one really has that shape going on where their back muscle goes into a tiny little waist like that, but that's traditionally how comics are drawn. And then for his utility belt, we just have a couple of boxes, literally just a couple of squares. You can draw a little line here to make it show that's going around him. And of course, there's going to be two little lines and then the circle right in the middle. Now, it's important that you do have your placement right, because if you have something that's supposed to be centered a little off center, it's going to look a tiny bit off. If you ever look at art that's kind of like off model is what we call it, where it doesn't quite look like it's official art, it's usually because something's not lining up right. And my art looks like that a lot of times too, because again, I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm doing these quick sketches that are creating this, and that's one of the things though, if you want to look as good as possible, you want to really pay attention to. You want to make sure that the placement of everything and where they are in relation to each other is just kind of right. Otherwise, it's going to look a little off. Now, for the front part of his body, we're going to do kind of the opposite. We're not going to do a curve then an S. We're just going to do a curve coming down. Just kind of going that way. And again, same thing. Couple of boxes for his utility belt. To show it's going around him. We're going to make sure it's the same size as the other ones on the utility belt. Notice how they want to be around the same size here. I wasn't making them the right size, but I got to double check and just make sure. So we have his utility belt. We have the basic of his kind of his torso. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put some of the details on here. We're going to do the Robin symbol, just the circle over the right side. And then we're going to make the R. Now this is also something that's important. You might have to redo a couple of times. Superhero symbols are very distinctive. They use letters sometimes where you want to make sure it looks like the same type of letter, what we call the font of what they have. Like the Superman symbol, you can't just throw an S on Superman's chest. You have to make the S with the shield look like the way it's always drawn. It's one of those things, again, that kind of helps sell the look of the thing. That's not quite right, but it's close enough for me. And then, of course, he has the 2 gold bars that come down here that connects the cape to his costume. And then he has one down here, little rectangles. Again, notice very simple geometric shape. Rectangles, circles, triangles. Almost everything can be broken down into those things. And then, of course, we want to make sure we get that cape in. The cape just kind of comes from under his arm. This is where we want to look at the relationship between where different parts of the drawing are interacting with each other. So right now he has the under part of his arm. The cape is kind of, it's almost like it extends out from where the sleeve turns. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look at that and I'm going to draw it going that way. And now you don't have to follow it exact, just like the idea of a cape that flows, right? A cape is supposed to catch the wind and look all dramatic. Now his cape, you got that little thick black line to show the outside of the cape, and then the mustard colored kind of inside of the cape goes this way. We're going to go ahead and draw part of his leg because that's going to come across into what we're drawing here. We'll make the cape a little bigger, a little more dramatic. I kind of shortchanged him there on the cape. So we're going to go ahead and bring it down this way and then go that way. There we go. It looks a little more dramatic. Don't mind me, just drop my pencil. Okay. Clean this up a little bit. Get rid of the extra lines we don't need. So far it's looking pretty good. This is looking like a Teen Titans Go Robin. So we're going to draw a little bit of his lower half here. Just kind of get the straight lines to the legs, a straight line going across to connect the left and right leg, and then the line coming out from the utility belt. Now again, if you had enough space or if you turned your paper the other way, you can draw him full size. For now though, we have, this is actually pretty dynamic, meaning that it has a lot of movement to it because it's challenging the edges of the page. It's, you know, when you read comic books a lot, you'll have things going to the edge of the frame, and that gives it a sense of motion and urgency a lot of times when it's done right, because you're not seeing the whole picture, so you're getting an idea that what you're looking at is moving or is going towards something, which is not a bad thing for us to have here. So I'm going to go ahead now for the other sleeve. Now we want to draw, notice how the front hand is gigantic, but if you look at the reference art, the back arm is very, very small. It's to give us the impression that the back half of him is turned away from us. Kind of like if I were to turn my shoulder toward you, this shoulder looks bigger, this gets smaller back here. So if I'm doing this, this looks big, this looks small. So that's what's happening with his arm back here. And his arm, I have to draw smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw the sleeve, which again is kind of like a little cup shape. Rounded bottom, flat top, rounded side. So he's got his sleeve. And then the arm is really what has to be much smaller. So again, the arm, very simple, straight line. It's almost like an upside down L shape, right? Where it's just like straight line across, straight line down, straight line across, straight line down, and then the gloves, which again flares out, comes in, and then if we're looking at the way it's drawn, again, it's very geometric. We come a straight line out, we come a straight line across, and then we have, again, it comes out this way, straight line, comes up this way, and then we have the basic shape of his hand. Now we just have to put in where the fingers are, 1, 2, 3, and then over here, you draw this line intersecting like a T to show his thumb and his pointer finger. That's actually a very simple way to show the thumb and pointer finger. You draw a rectangle like that, and then put a T shape in it. It looks like a thumb and a forefinger touching each other. So, there he is making a fist. There he is pointing at us. And we pretty much have our Teen Titans Go Robin, all the basic shapes. And that's the thing with something like the way this cartoon's art style is, it's very simple. It's very flat. It's very cartoonish. I'm actually, when I finish my drawing here, I'm going to add some more comic book style details once I hit fast forward, of course. I'm going to add color, and I'm going to be adding some shading. Notice how, like, I kind of like how his arm here, I have these kind of like lines going across the side. Now I'll get rid of the ones on his sleeve maybe, but the ones that go across his arm, it gives a sense of motion. Like if I were to do this, right? Very comic book thing to do, and even in anime they have, you know, people call the anime lines, is you have these lines that you kind of go along with the motion to really exaggerate and make a still picture look like it's moving. So that's a nice thing that you can kind of add there. So this is our Teen Titans Go Robin. Hope this was helpful for you. I'm going to hit fast forward and I'm going to outline my drawing. I'm going to let you know again what I do when I do these fast forwards is I'm outlining the drawing in a thin black line. That's something you can do on paper by going ahead and just buying a very thin black felt tip marker. I'll put a link in the description of the video for the one that I usually suggest that people use. Very cheap to get, and they make your drawings look, the comic book and kind of cartoon style really, really pops with that. So that's something that you can do. And then of course I'm going to be adding color, which you can be doing just using colored pencils. I layer it on using this program, but it's the same idea when you're using your colored pencils, when you're able to layer certain colors on top of each other to create the look that you want. So again, I hope this was useful, guys. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. Let's hit fast forward and let's get the finishing touches done on Robin.